A hand-carved natural quartz crystal ball made into a necklace for divination on the go. Crystal balls have been used for centuries in healing and cleansing rituals, as well as for divination. The sphere represents infinity and the circle of life. While a wand uses focused energy, the crystal ball sends out energy in all directions. This makes it a great resource for discovering the complete circumstances surrounding a question.
Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly podcast series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, watching, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and follow us wherever you listen to your podcast. Harnessing Your Inner Alchemist. Our guest today is the author of the book, Becoming Authentically Me, and currently writing her second book of her time at Art of Living in India. She is a soul empowerment coach, divine channel, and light language healer. Being Dutch, she is a bit of a bike messenger between here and there, delivering messages from many master teachers integral to helping elevate the consciousness of humanity and the planet. She hopes that people will awaken to what life is about, unlocking their own potential and becoming authentically and wholesome within themselves. Let's welcome to the show for the first time, Brigitta Visser. Yes. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You are very, very welcome. And as a warning for everybody out there, we might have more shows because after going briefly before we started recording and some of your biography, we've got a lot of research in common. So, how did this all start for you?
By being born?
Yes. Good answer. And that was not a trick question.
Oh, well, I was born in 1974. So I'm a 70s kid, 80s kid. And prior to being born, Paul, I must have ticked every box of trauma, every experience. I thought, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. This is fine. Yes, I'll be fine. And then I was born, and I was knocked out cold. Of course,
Yeah.
I came from the light into the cold of this world, and I forgot everything. So I forgot everything I signed up for. But to put it in a nutshell, so we all go through trauma. We all go through different experiences, and it's all about how you decide to heal from them. So for me, my childhood was fine to a certain degree until we moved to Singapore. Well, we moved to Singapore and then Malaysia. And then at the age of 10, I was abused by a friend of the family because my dad was fired from a company that he was a VP of, and due to disagreements, and we stayed with a friend of the family for several months.
Yeah.
And I never said anything to my parents because it was a different era growing up in the 80s. I didn't even understand it properly. And I was also very quiet, very not necessarily introvert, but just more quiet kid. And then we moved, and there was a time, like for a year, that my sister and I didn't go to school because there was just no money. And eventually we went back to Holland, and that was in April of 1988. And my dad had always said that when he would cross the ocean, he said that he would pass. He would die. And my mom thought that was a whole load of baloney at the time. But I think it was so ingrained within my dad that it's kind of sort of manifested. So he suffered from coronary heart disease pretty much straight when he landed in Holland. And then he didn't take his medication. And then in July of that same year, he died of cardiac arrest. He was cycling out near the beach, not far from the beach, and he just fell off his bike, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, and he did leave a letter. He was actually a Rosicrucian.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and so people are like, what's a Rosicrucian? Well, there we go all the way back to, even the mystery schools. We can go back to Atlantis. But it was, we fast forward to the Renaissance period, and then we have alchemy. So these are all things, and people think alchemy, okay, that's very physical, turning lead to gold, but actually it's a transformation of character. And it's, right, turning the heaviness of your experiences, alchemizing these, healing these, and turning them into gold. And so that you become more aware of yourself and more enlightened, so to speak, because the road to enlightenment, oh my gosh, it takes thousands of lifetimes.
Yeah. And speaking, and for those who follow this show and this podcast, I'm going to throw a word in there, or Sir Francis Bacon, just to throw that out there. One of the awesome alchemists, very shaded in history, but for those who can research that.
Sir Francis Bacon, yes, the illegitimate son of Elizabeth I, the pseudonym for Shakespeare, and also the Ascended Master Saint Germain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I work a lot with Saint Germain. I love him. I really, really do. So that was one of the reasons that it's probably because I didn't know it at the time that my dad was a Rosicrucian, because back in the 80s, we didn't have Google. So he got all his his modules through the mail, but it was very expensive at the time. And my mom said, "We can't afford this. You really need to focus on your family." But he was so engrossed in it. And also meditation. But because he went through his own trauma as a child, because he went into a seminary, his parents put him into a seminary at the age of 15, and he was abused in there. And so he left, and he got married, but it was that it wasn't to my mom, it was someone else. And then he met my mom after that. But it's that was very interesting to me. And many years later, when I started channeling, that's when I found out, oh, my dad was really all into this, and I didn't know all this sacred geometry and everything. So it was like a kind of like a continuation at the time. But going back to when I was 14, when he crossed over, I mean, I was a mess. I mean, that really knocked me, knocked the wind out of my sails. And my mom had to start from scratch because he didn't leave anything. He left her with nothing.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, my mom had to raise two teenagers, and we wore secondhand clothes. Does it matter? Absolutely not. It's better than running around naked, right? So yeah, and school was different for me there because I was very, very skinny. So I got bullied a lot, and I felt very insecure. And because I was so scared of boys, I often say this: if there was a guy in the hallway and my classroom was on the other end, I take a different route because that's how scared I was.
Wow.
Which is just incredible, that fear that I kept walking around with, and I just wanted to be invisible. So I wish I walked around like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. That's how bad it was. And I kept, I didn't heal that. I just kept carrying it with me until at the age of 19, actually, we were watching an Oprah Winfrey show about abuse, and my mom said to both me and my sister, "Well, I'm glad that neither of you got abused." Well, I kept my mouth shut. And that's when it came out. And the first thing she said to me was, "Wasn't your dad, was it?" I said, "No." So I told her who it was. And it was very difficult for me to talk about because of all the guilt and the shame, carrying these labels. And prior to that, even at the age of 16, my mom tried to put me on a modeling course. That didn't help me because I was so rigid. I felt like I was walking like Atlas with the weight of the world on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And that didn't help because it's not getting to the root of the issue. So it's trying to fix something that, by trying to walk straight and trying to crick up my confidence, but it's really not getting to the root. And, a hairdresser plucked me out from this course, and he wanted me to be one of the main models. But I had hair till here, and he chopped it into...
Whoa. Well, we lost her.
Do you know what?
I don't know what happened. That's the first time.
I was still in the studio, and it just went boom, and I was still in there.
Gosh. Wow. Yeah, that's the first time it's happened. Like literally just dropped out completely. It's like, okay. That's why I pre-record this stuff. It used to, when I used to do the show live and stuff like this happened, forget it. Bad show.
But you know what? I was still in the studio. It's just boom. It's just
yeah, that is weird.
Weird.
Huh. Yeah. Well, I get a signal on both my feed and your feed on the on my panel down below the studio, so I can see whether it's a good signal or a bad signal. But both of our signals are like really, really good. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it was a internet disconnect or something.
Maybe, yes.
Who knows? Well, luckily I could go back and edit that out. So
yes, I know.
Thank God. Where did we leave off? Something about your hair.
I know. Oh, what was I there?
As soon as that's weird too, because as soon as you said cut, it stopped. It.
Maybe they're having some fun up there.
They are. Yes. I'm sure of it.
Okay, so do you want me to repeat that part?
Maybe just a little bit.
A little bit. Okay, so Okay, fine. So my mom put me on this course, this modeling course, which didn't help me because I was still carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders. And trying to band-aid something is not going to work when you have very deep-rooted issues. So when my mom put me on this course, I was picked up by a hairdresser to be one of the main models, and I had hair till here, and he actually cut it into a pixie cut. I felt horrified. I felt so ugly. Well, I mean, I got paid the 75 guilders, but it didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
And so, and my mom actually, she always wanted me to talk about what had happened in my youth, and I never wanted to talk about it. It was too difficult for me. And so even in the modeling industry, because I continued with that, and it was very difficult for me because I was very naive. I was not thick-skinned. And even there, I was assaulted. And I never got a job, really, only several. It was like a cattle market, very superficial. It's very egotistical. It's all about beauty on the outside, not the inside.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with it. So going to castings was always very difficult because I'd be there for stand in the queue for 2 hours, sometimes longer.
Wow.
And then they call me in, look through my portfolio, take my comp card, and then they'd call next because I just wasn't their type. They were like, I look too much like Linda Evangelista or Brooke Shields or Nikki Taylor. And then even as I got older, they were saying at 25 I was too old.
Wow. 25.
Yeah, I know. It's too old for the industry at the time. And it did knock my confidence. It really, really did. And the only thing that kept me going, because even when I was out at school, I would often throw away my lunches, but I would sit and eat at the dinner table. So I had a problem, but it just became a part of me, a part of who I was. And for many, many years, that was the only thing I could control, like not eating properly, like starving myself and just getting by with just enough fuel to keep me going. But I was skinny as hell, and people would ask me, why? How come you're so skinny? Well, it's my metabolism. Well, that was half the truth, but I was just very good at that because I could control that. And the same with working like a dog. I could work many hours, have several jobs, work 7 days a week because that's what kept me going. That's how I suppressed my emotions.
Yeah.
And still I didn't heal because I rolled into dysfunctional relationships. The first relationship I had was at, I always say 21 and a half. And my mom and my stepdad did not like my first boyfriend because he was Turkish, and the Turkish have a bad rap in Holland. And I said it's so different out where I lived because I was living out in Istanbul. I've traveled the world, Paul. I've actually moved more times than my age, so I'm a bit of a nomad.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean,
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, by nature, the human beings are nomadic.
Yes, they are. Yes, yes. And so, yeah, rolling into dysfunctional relationships, I was always trying not to hurt the other person. People pleaser to